What if changing our world has everything to do with remembering that we are a point of consciousness, a presence that can serve as a portal, a free flow of ideas from the spiritual realm to the material, that we can actually emanate the frequencies we wish to pollinate on the planet? We have a beautiful guest on today, Anna Gatmon. She is an amazing spiritual teacher, mentor, healer, guide, and she's the award-winning author of Shift Calling. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, and we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is greater than us, to the great mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably towards a deeper understanding of ourselves and this experience of life that we're having on planet Earth at the time of the Great Awakening. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love having these conversations week after week, and today is no exception. The conversation we'll have today is really deeply profound, and it is going to challenge us to reach beyond our separation consciousness, where we divide out the divinity from the material world, where we make this idea that the material world is somehow mundane and not infused with the sacred. And we want to lift the veil on that and see to the truth that everything is energy, everything is divinity, and everything can be restored to its magic simply by remembering that it's sacred as well and treating it and honoring it in a sacred way. So this is going to be a really amazing conversation. I've met this incredible woman here, Anna Gatmon. Welcome, Anna.
Hello, Carrie. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm really looking forward to speaking about this because I think it really is the next step in our evolving human and planetary consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just so grateful to have met you. And, here's a little bit about Anna, because if you haven't met her yet, she used to be a supermodel, and now she's a modern mystic. And she has a PhD. She's smart, beautiful, gifted, psychic. All these things is amazing. And she used to grace the runways of Yves Saint Laurent and Jean-Paul Gaultier. And she was born in Israel into an alcoholic family. She grew up with a severe stutter, which you wouldn't even know now because she has shifted. And she used to have undiagnosed learning challenges and even anorexia. But 4 decades later, Anna identifies as an educator at heart and a transformation catalyst. She's an expert in transformative and holistic learning and the creator of the expansive living method. And she guides visionary empaths and highly sensitive creative people to help shift human and planetary consciousness through their unique expression and contribution. And she's the award-winning author of 2 books and the creator of the weekly inspiring mystical moment messages and the expansive living community. And her book is called Shift Calling. It's a beautiful book. I've been reading it. It's really gorgeous. I recommend that you all pick up a copy and check it out. It's so many beautiful invitations of contemplation inside the book. So, and inside the book, Anna, you say so many beautiful things, but let's start with your first shift in consciousness. And that was really to the shift in your physical appearance, right? The shift in your own identity and how you perceived yourself, because you actually perceived yourself to be kind of awkward and gangly and not that attractive. And so you were really shocked when you were invited to become a supermodel. Like that was not even
Yes.
in your realm of possibility. So tell us a little bit about your beginnings, because this was powerful in helping you to
Yeah.
start detaching from your own identity.
So I grew up in Israel with a Swedish mother and a Polish-born father. And I was due into the military service, which is mandatory in Israel for women as well, for 2 years. And it's part of the ethos, I was brainwashed in a sense to, I need to show up in service of my land as it is showing up for me. And my dad was a pilot, so this was just the thing that I was going to do. And I grew up with a severe stutter, learning challenges, as I said. I had red hair, which was never popular, white skin in a country that has a lot of sun, an alcoholic mother, a raging father. So, I did live in a middle-class family, and I traveled to work because my dad was a pilot, but my internal experience was really damaged, and I loathed myself. I really did. I loathed myself. And so I was shocked when I was visiting my mom in Sweden. My parents had separated. My mom had moved back for rehab. And, there's a photo. I still have that photo with this bush of a hair and a huge sweater that I was hiding under. And this woman, this scout in southern Sweden said, do you want to work as a fashion model and travel the world? Now, I'd traveled the world because my dad was a pilot, but a fashion model was definitely, it was not how I saw myself. So I think that first, if we take it back to how do we shift human consciousness, the first thing is to shift our perception of ourselves. And so even if you take an issue that you're working on, that you are dealing with, and you start listening to what you tell yourself about it, it's in the background. We never listen to it. But if you bring it out from the background and you say, what is the limiting sentence that's on repeat when I'm dealing with this issue? And it can be a challenge, or it can be an aspiration that we don't, something amazing that we want to do, and we are limiting ourselves that we don't do it. So you bring out of the background the limiting perception of ourselves. And then you replace it with a life-affirming, caring, loving perception of ourselves. And we try that. And that's just that 1-degree shift can make a difference in how we perceive the situation. So I know it's easy to say, well, she was lucky. She went from being kind of Cinderella. I was in charge of doing the dishes every day. My stepmother was a real vicious human being. So the classic situation of a stepmother and Cinderella. And suddenly I was walking on the runway for Yves Saint Laurent and doing the perfume Rive Gauche for Yves Saint Laurent. It was big. So it's not just that I got lucky, I got to have a huge experience of shifting, because otherwise I probably would have never shifted my perception of myself. And so I learned from that you can shift your perception of yourself either internally or by external circumstances, as I did. But it's not easy, because it's easy to say, well, she was a fashion model. It's like I was due into the military service. I lost my passport because it's mandatory. I didn't tell my dad, told me you have to come back. I decided not to. And for 6 months, he didn't know where I was. So I defied my dad. He called the Israeli embassy in Paris. Has she been here? I mean, where is she? I mean, you can imagine for a parent to not know where your child is for 6 months, but it was the only way for me to defy the box that was built for me. And so it was a huge shift. It was a scary shift. I thought I would lose all my friends, my community, would never be able to go back to Israel. It was not an easy decision, as it may sound now. Well, you could go to the military service for 2 years, or you could be a fashion model in Paris. I'd like to be a fashion model, but I'll go back to the military service, right? It's like, it's not an easy choice when we're living it. It seems easy when we admire somebody else. But that was the big shift. The big first shift.
Yeah. And that first shift started opening you up to maybe questioning questioning a lot of things that you were told or taught, and realizing that you came out of that brave, taking the leap of faith, and you landed on your feet on a runway. And so clearly you're able to change your life, right? And so that's got to have been very empowering. And then you described many other events in your life where you had this opportunity to question what was happening, to question, even with your son in school, to question,
Yeah.
gosh, is this the right choice for him? And I had a similar experience where my son was like, put his head down on the desk, didn't want to, engage the teacher, was depressed and sad, and getting sent to the office all the time with pink cards. And he would just look at them and say, pink's my favorite color. It was like, this is clearly not the school for you, kiddo. So you made some choices about how to deal with that. So tell us a little bit about that part of your journey.
So the homeschooling, so this was with my older kid. They just turned 30. And I was, I'd gone to public school. I was not like, I'm not this alternative I am today, maybe, but it was just like, I knew that my kid was this beautiful soul. And I could just see within 2 weeks in school, they were carrying their bag, and it was heavy, like a heavy load for a 6-year-old. And I could just see their soul was just, they were doing this to them. And it was just, I got my PhD in transformative learning, how to create the conditions for transformational learning in individuals and groups and teams. And I thought, rather than looking for a job and then my child going to the school, I'll combine the two. And so there was a famous family in Israel that was homeschooling. I found their phone number. I reached out and I said, how do I homeschool? And, my child was in school for a month, and I took them out before we even got a permit. And I was threatened, and they said, keep them until, and I said, no, my kid is not coming back. And I just started not knowing really how to homeschool. So clearly it is in my character to take big risks. And this is this is how my life has been. I didn't plan to sit here with you and to be here and to write 2 books. I mean, I had learning challenges. I had a conversation with God or whoever it was during my first book. It's like, why did you give me this job? There are people of 30 books, give them the job, give them the knowledge that's coming through me. Why are you giving it to me? So I wasn't planning on all of that, but my life has been like this, that I'm on a path, and then I get a very big different path, and something that I cannot live with anymore in my regular path. And something in my soul says, just go for it. Just go for it. And, I need to work certain things through. So I'm not suicidal, kind of. I work certain things through, but I'm still taking a huge leap and shifting. And it's always been for the better. Always. It's made me more whole on a physical level, on a spiritual level, on an emotional level, on a financial level, social level. It's always been for the better. So it's my soul is taking me there. And so I have to listen, because otherwise I'll be miserable.
Yeah. And I think that's why your book is called Shift Calling, right? Because the shift calls us.
Yeah.
It already is calling us. It's already in motion. The events and circumstances of our life lead us to a sacred yes. We say the sacred yes, and then everything changes, right? So it's not like we're trying to protect this. Like, I want to keep this the same. I don't want that to change, but I won't do this. And we find out, no, it's like we get the opportunity to shift, like you said, one change at a time, one choice at a time, one degree at a time. But all those decisions, those sacred yeses, they do add up, and they create, like you said, these whole new pathways for ourselves that sometimes we get in these spots where we get some resistance maybe to moving through to that new path.
Yeah.
And then we have to shift our identity. It seems to me like you've shifted your identity over and over and over again, and that's how you've gotten through it.
Yeah. Even when I went to the 12-step programs in my late 20s, because my mom went for recovery from her alcoholism, and I was introduced to the 12 steps. So adult children of alcoholics, Al-Anon, and then I went to Food Addicts Anonymous because I had anorexic tendencies. And so it's really helpful to identify what your addiction is, because then it's out in the open. It's not a secret. So I would say I'm Anna and I'm an anorexic. And I don't recall if I was there, I was in these meetings for 2 years or so. And that was, it's a whole amazing story there as well. But at some point, apropos shifting my perception of myself, it didn't serve me anymore. It served me to say I'm Anna and I'm anorexic when it had been my own secret, when it had trapped me and it trapped my emotions and my feelings, which I had starved for my entire life. Suddenly it wasn't serving me anymore to be in this identity of these 12-step programs forever and ever. Now, I'm not judging if someone feels that they have to do that and that's what's going to save their life, keep doing it. But for me, I had to build a relationship with food that was different than just to hold on to that forever. And so I shifted. I mean, just like I say, I was a stutterer. And you can hear every now and then there's something that gets stuck a bit, but I've been able to shift that as well. It's like, because I've shifted my perception of myself, but it's not just a sentence, as I said before. I did Feldenkrais, I did yoga, I did a lot of inner work. I did a lot of things to shift my perception of myself from a stutterer to a public speaker. I mean, that's a huge shift.
Yeah, and
But
you actually
chunk it down.
say that
Yeah.
it's like shifting is an act of love. I mean, it's an act of
Yeah.
self-love to be
Yeah.
aligned with something more true about yourself than whatever you've
Yeah.
been experiencing up until now.
Yeah. I think it's from this book that I say ultimately it's self-love that will heal your wounds and stop your inner battles. But the important thing is we judge people or evaluate them from the outside, and you go, okay, she was a fashion model, she was lucky, right? Or she was courageous, she started a homeschooling. The decision might be a big one, but the steps are small, so chunk things down. It's like I wasn't on the runway of Yves Saint Laurent the second I decided that I was going to be a fashion model. I had to get the money for it. I had to buy a ticket. I had to make sure I had where to stay in Paris. Suddenly, when you're chunking it down, then you're just going step by step by step. And it's not this huge thing. The direction feels like big, but then the doing of it can really be step by step at the pace that's comfortable for your nervous system.
Yeah, and you're talking about like each of us individually shifting our realities in order to collectively shift this experience on earth.
Yeah.
And one of the things you talk about in what shift is calling you is desire. So like we've got to start with a desire to have something greater than what we've been experiencing up until now. And for some people, like their mindsets just don't even believe magic is possible anymore, right? Like they've forgotten that this whole place is magical and they don't even know it anymore. And so like you're asking them, what do you desire? And they're like, oh, I don't want to desire anything because it's probably not going to happen. It's like Santa Claus isn't real. And I don't want to be disappointed again.
Yeah. Well, let's just put this in perspective. Soil, which we call in America dirt many times, has produced everything on planet Earth. All of nature and an entire civilization of humanity comes from everything that grows either above soil or within soil. Nothing else. Our smartphones come from soil. Many degrees of separation, but our smartphones come from soil. If you take that in for just a moment, nothing is shipped in. Everything has evolved through the magic of soil, fungi, minerals, critters, like all of that. The sun, the rain, the water, the air has created what grows above. It's pretty magical. It's pretty magical if we take a moment to think about that. And then here we come, a species, the creative force on planet Earth. Sorry. We are created in a way that we have the capacity to travel between the realms. That's magical. We just live our life, but we're imagining things all the time and bringing them into being, into material existence. If you say, I want to eat gnocchi for dinner and tomato sauce tonight, you're imagining it. Now you have to imagine how you're going to get it and how you're going to cook it. And you'll take a recipe, you'll work together, collaborate your imagination, the spiritual realm, the inner realms with the material world, and you'll bring into being a plate of gnocchi and tomato sauce. We just take it for granted. Oh, I need to cook. You imagined it, you created it. And so likewise, we can go into, the intricacy of the spiritual realm. If we go to the devic realm or the angelic realm, we have access to it. We have an angelic nature, a devic nature. We can embody. So before I came onto our interview, I did a meditation connecting to the 4 elements. So beyond just blessing them or acknowledging them, I invited them into a collaboration with me today for the interview. So I connected to Earth and to be in the embrace of Earth. I asked to be in the flow of water. I asked for wind, for air, which is the element of communication, to bring me messages of inspiration, for fire, for the sun, to stoke my devotion to, to sharing my message of the sacred world, that both you doing your work in your way and I doing mine. So it's not just a blessing of the element and acknowledging them, it's collaborating with them because they are alive, they have a consciousness. And so it's working with that. How can I bring to a situation that I'm dealing with now? How can I bring the quality of water into it? How can I be more water? And suddenly you receive a message of look for the path of least resistance, because that's a quality of water. So it's really working with the material world, and our elements are part of the material world.
And so part of this inspiration for many people to decide to shift, right, to get the desire to shift, would be to be inspired by someone who has already reawakened the magic within themselves, or the awareness of the magic that's all around us, right? And so that's why probably so many of us are speaking and writing books and sharing our messages around the world, is to invite people to a different kind of experience on this planet. And I love how you talk about, because many of the people in this audience, that's who they are. They're here to share that message, or they're here to activate that awareness or help people to shift through it as a healer or as a mentor. And so that ability, I love how you said, I have a quote here about what you said. It was really powerful. You were pulling together several of your points that you were made. And so maybe we can step through them. But what you said was, as a point of consciousness, we bring presence. As a portal, we allow the free flow of ideas from the spiritual realm to the material. As creative intelligence, we tapped into ingenuity. As a pollinator, we serve while being served. And then we have this way of realizing that our life is the occasion that we can rise to, that actually we can use all of this consciousness, being a portal, conduit, creative intelligence, pollinating, bringing the spiritual into the material, that we can do that while creating something magical in our world that seems magical, right? Because the sacred is all around us. It's just that we forgot. And so as soon as we remember, it wakes up and it goes, oh, you're talking to me. And we can create like an incredible journey that others are just amazed to be a part of. And so maybe step us through a little bit about, like, when you say we are as a point of consciousness and as a portal and as a conduit, just kind of give us step us through that.
So I might not remember all of them, but you'll help me out there. But They also, so you're talking about the section in the book that's called shifting your perception of yourself.
Yes,
So
because I
shifting
think
your
it starts
perception,
with that,
yes,
shifting our perception of ourselves first
yes,
and
yeah,
what we're capable of,
yeah.
right?
So when we just see ourselves as just human, whatever that means for us, then we're just a product of circumstances and luck or no luck, and it is very limiting. And we forget that we live in a vibrational world. This vibrational world is conscious. So we live in a conscious universe. So everything is consciousness. And that consciousness or that energy is it comes together in different densities and constellations. The more dense it is, the more material it is. The less dense it is, the less material it is, like our emotions or our thoughts or gas or the inner spiritual realms, right? So originally we are pure consciousness. You know, Deepak Chopra talks about the field of pure potentiality, right? That's that's why it's so magical. And then the universe is creating that consciousness, is creating oxygen and water and soil and plants and human beings through evolution. But it's still the magic of being able to create that. And so we need to remember, first of all, that we are a point of consciousness in the planet, in the universe, or even a field. So a point or a field. And I remember realizing that it's like, if I just imagine, I close my eyes, I imagine the whole universe. I, little Anna, exist in that huge universe of which I know mostly nothing about, right? And it's such a different perspective. It's like, I have a place. I have a place in the vast universe. I have a place on the planet. I have a place in my community. I have a place to live my purpose. And so I feel that for me is the biggest shift to start with, that you're worthy because you exist. You are a field of consciousness. So that's kind of number one.
Yeah, I love that. And it's that like claiming your space,
Yeah.
that I guide so many people. It's like, claim your space. You have a right to be here. Sometimes people hear that message and they cry. It's like, you have a
Yeah.
right to be here. This is
Yeah.
your space. It's your
Yeah.
space. And yeah, and then the next thing is like, how do we use that space? What are
Yeah.
we a portal to? What do we choose to use our point of
Yeah.
consciousness to
Yeah.
become a portal of? And I think that's a powerful conversation as well.
So again, we're a portal between the spiritual and the material as two general high-level categories, between imagining and bringing into being, between visioning and realizing, between dreaming and manifesting. We have the power to do that. We're not just living our lives according to what we're told culturally. We have as I said before, you imagine a meal and you bring it into being. And so let's take, for example, in a retreat center, because it's very obvious there. The retreat center wants to create in nature a sitting area that's a tranquility area, right? Where it's really peaceful. They do that with intention. They go, okay, water, flow, and the trickling sound will create peacefulness. Let's have a weeping willow here so that when the wind comes through, it will move and flutter. Let's have a bench that's handmade by a local artist. So it really feels, and there's some stones maybe. That is going from the spiritual to the material, from the field of pure potentiality to creating a corner that inspires peacefulness and tranquility. It's living with intention. It's working with the elements. Okay, how do I use water in order to create peacefulness? How do I use wind in order to create flow or peacefulness? How do I use wood and human ingenuity to create a bench? it seems so obvious there in that corner, but all of our modern lives can be lived that way. Everything we do, if you're an accountant and you're doing spreadsheets, you're not just crunching numbers. If you go to the hidden, you open the hidden door of what it means to be an accountant, you're creating order. You're creating peacefulness in an organization, or for a company, or for someone who you're doing the accounting for. You're creating security. You're creating possibility. You have used this much, there's so much more to use. So there are many qualities that you bring when you're an accountant, which we would think does, okay, it's part of the modern world, but there's nothing spiritual about it. But if you look behind into the consciousness of what you bring and afford to a client or an organization when you do their accounting, suddenly that becomes sacred. And if you love to write numbers in an order, and you love to do some whatever mathematical equations it is, that's your gift. And we sure need it in the world. Like many times the spiritual world has been about just spirit and no matter and no finances. And many people are hurting that way. We need to embrace it. Money is a divine consciousness. And I heard someone say, which I just love, money doesn't corrupt, money reveals. It reveals the consciousness that you're at. So if you have a consciousness of kindness and you have money, you use it one way. If you have consciousness of power over, you will use money a different way. But money in and of itself is a consciousness of abundance, and consciousness of possibility, and consciousness of generosity, and consciousness of community. It can be used in so many ways, and it reveals the consciousness that you're in as you use it.
Yeah, I love this. This is what it reminds me of, that old adage of the father and the son that walk up. They see these people with bricks and doing work, and the boy asks the man, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm laying bricks." And he says, "Oh, okay, laying bricks." And then he walks down a little bit around the corner, and there's another one, doing this. And he asks him, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm building a temple to worship the divine." Oh, it's a very different thing, like
Exactly.
the perspective.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
So beautifully said, Carrie. That's exactly it. And I think that that's where the magic comes in. When we look at we open the hidden door and see what's behind there. I often give the example that I love my car, because my car is not just metal, rubber, and plastic. My car is a vehicle for nourishment when I go to the market to buy food. And it's a vehicle for connection with my community when I go to the farmer's market. And it's a vehicle for me to live my purpose when it takes me to give a talk. And it is a vehicle for friendship when it takes me to have lunch with the friend of mine. And so if I have this moment of connection with my car and I appreciate it, so I could be driving down the highway and I have this moment of appreciation. Thank you for taking me to live my purpose. I'm so excited. Thank you for doing that. When I do that, I receive love back, because if we live in a vibrational world and we live in a conscious universe, then everything is consciousness. And our cars are not something to hate, but something to appreciate. And when we start appreciating, we start building fields of love and appreciation in our material world where we live, our environment. I mean, the room you're in is usually made, it has chairs that you picked out of your love, your sense of aesthetics. You might have a pebble that you picked because you love. I mean, these are all connections of love, of appreciation. So start having these conscious conversations with your material world. And what you will do, you will amplify the love between you. So the next time I look at the pebble here, it sends me energy as well, because there's a relationship that's alive. And the next time I go into my car, there's a whiff of excitement and love that I feel and that I send back. And it's not just, oh my God, I need to drive there now. Suddenly I'm in a different relationship. And suddenly I turn my material world into sacred, both what exists, but also what I create. And then if we can connect it to consumerism, I don't need as much, because I'm actually being so fulfilled by a living relationship that I need less of more, more, and more, and more. Like people are looking, they're looking in the right place. They're just not opening the hidden door. People want more things because they want more of something. We're dying to go back home. We're dying to connect to that expansive consciousness. And people are doing it through the material world of getting more and more things. Teenagers might be doing it through drugs. I mean, it's just, we're all searching for that expansive, blissful state that we come from. And so if we start making our material world and our environment and everything, the elements, living consciousnesses, and we start to communicate with them, we don't feel alone. We feel that we live in a connected world. And we start having easy access to that hidden realm, to this expansiveness on a daily basis.
I love that. I really love that. And it hints at what you were talking about with being a conduit. It's the intentionality, right? It's like every morning I open sacred space. I call in the directions. I light my altars. It's the first thing I do every day. I don't do anything before I do that. And I'm calling in the directions. I'm welcoming in, like you did before this call.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, I know you're there. I welcome you. Thank you so much for all that you've offered me. I say thank you to Mother Earth, all the stones, all the rocks, everything that exists. And seeing myself as interconnected with all that is.
Yes. Yeah.
And now, as I make that conscious choice to take that action every day as a ritual, then I'm becoming a conduit of that energy. And I'm actually I'm a walking conduit of sacred space.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm aware of myself being creative intelligence inside of that conduit,
Yes.
right? So I'm aware of myself interacting creatively with all of intelligence.
Yeah.
And then I'm in that action, I am pollinating. Like I'm pollinating because people feel the difference.
Yeah.
In the walking
you create
space
a field.
I create.
Well, first of all, because you repeat it, you're amplifying the field. Mm-hmm. So you're building the field. It's easier for you to tap into it, and you build it. And then you're a conduit, because as you walk around, your interactions, the actions, the choices you make, that field is influencing it. You're thinking about the problem you're dealing with from that field rather than from a different field, right?
But it's also, I want to add this in, is a matter of what I'm tuning into. And this is key, because I open the sacred space, right? And so I'm tuning my day to the elements and the directions and the ancestors and all of this beauty and love, that's magic, that's alive right here, right now. Well, then if I get distracted or my attention gets hooked, and then I start tuning in, and there's this great picture in this deck, Mystical Shaman deck by Alberto Vialdo, of the eagle. And it's got this giant eye with like a magnifying glass. And like, I'm just looking at someone who's doing something I don't think they should be doing. It's like I've got this giant telescope that's meant to see the stars, right? Just pointed down on somebody, focused on it. And I'm creating a different kind of energy. Yeah. Now I'm creating an energy of like spying or judging, and now that is going to start building instead of what I actually came to be a conduit of, which is this higher energy. So it's a matter of like, I'm realizing moment by moment, what am I tuning into, right? And you talk about this in the book, is like, how do we relate to the world around us and the things that are going on? And I know that it has something to do with, what are we being mindful of? Like, what are we creating with our conscious choice to be a conduit?
Yeah. And that every challenge you face, and it's easier said than done, can say that from experience. Every challenge you have is your ally, because it's your compass to the flow of divine sacred consciousness is stuck here. It's stuck here. Pay attention, bring it into the light, work with it. That's all it says. So it's really your ally, and it's not going away, not because you're doomed or you're forsaken or you're being tortured, which I've had the experience of with things that felt like they're not going away. It's your ally saying, I love you so much. I want divine sacred flow to come through this area in your life as well. And I am not letting go because I'm stuck until you find a way to shift your attitude, to free the energy, whatever it is, in whatever area in your life.
And
So,
it might just be coming
yeah,
back to, what does Carrie choose? What does Carrie choose?
yeah,
Had this great open connection with consciousness the other day. And it was like, well, Carrie, what do you choose? And I had this moment of like, I get to choose. Like, it was a surprise to me in that moment. Oh, well, I choose peace. I prefer it. I choose love. I choose grace. Right. And I think many of us watching this show, at least, agree with that. And we also, I got this strong message that choice is sacred. So we need to honor everyone's choices. And I think that's maybe where some of us get, I know that's where I've gotten tripped up, and maybe others as well. It's like, why would anybody choose that over there? But if we start asking that question, we're putting our focus someplace we have no control, right? Instead of being that conduit we said we were going to be.
Right. And there's wounding and there's trauma and there's legitimate anger and rage. There's a lot. It's complex. It's not just simple. We'll just connect to love and that's it. But in the process of choosing love, pain can come out. In the choice of choosing love, anger can come out and have a place there, right? And we can work through and heal because the choice is love. It's not about, I'm spiritual, I'll just connect to love. I'll choose the path of love and I'll allow everything that needs more love to come out and reveal itself and show me what it needs, what kind of healing it needs, what path it needs. It's very different.
Yeah, and a lot of people think, I've noticed that when that happens, they think they're either doing it wrong or they just need to amplify their choice again. So the universe knows, wait a second, I didn't choose that. That's not what I choose. Or like they think it's mundane or it's not sacred somehow. And I think what you're saying is something that I think we're on the same page here, which is that all of it is magical. All of it is sacred. All of it is divine. There's not like one thing happening here that's not divine. Like all of it is the divine play.
Yeah.
And we have to be here for all of it.
Yeah. And I want to say that, we're living in times where it's hard to stand on the sidelines and see, the crumbling of structures. And it feels like it's the amplifying of structures which are really horrendous in politics and, war, climate change. What can little I do? What can, people who are listening do? We are all here to bring this, to make the connection real, to open the flow, right? For the cylinder through which the flow of divine consciousness, of source to come through becomes bigger. When we do it in our personal life, in our world, we are bringing it to this planet. Because while we may perceive ourselves as individual and we are born into individuation on the planet, humans share a pool of consciousness. We might not think that way, but we are one species. There's a blueprint for what it is to be human. We're all born more or less looking like with the same features, right?
Like the 64 gene keys, for example, that have been identified. Yeah, here's
Yeah,
all the 64 shadows, and here's the 64 cities, and you have a chart and you've got some configuration of
right.
that.
Yeah. And so I lost my train of thought there for just right. So we share the consciousness of being human. And so when we elevate ourselves, when we clear, when we forgive, when we release a wound, when we work with it, when we clear and allow for more sacredness to come through us, when we love ourselves and see ourselves more as sacred and everything in our world, we are elevating human consciousness. And so whether you do it in your personal life or you're a public figure, whether you feel like it's just a small change or it's a big change, when you elevate yourself, you're elevating the consciousness of humanity and of our planet. So that's why I say you need to integrate your personal work, your spiritual work, and your world work. Because life is a spiritual practice. And when you do your own work as a spiritual practice, you are doing world work, whether if it's private and no one knows about it or it's very public.
Yeah, and the more in touch you get with that truth, the more you are grateful that more people do their
Yeah.
personal work and do their part of it.
Yeah.
Because, when you're tapped in and doing the work deeply, you're really aware of how much work there is
Yeah.
to elevate it. And
Right.
so just speaking as one of those people, I'm super grateful when people choose to take this path and, become self-aware and do their own work and realize that coming inside is the work. Not to say like picketing or protesting wouldn't be valuable, but it's just like,
Absolutely.
this is just also transforms more than it's the invisible transformation that's like really powerful.
And I want to give an example because we have it so dichotomized. It's either it's navel gazing or we're demonstrating in the streets. You have a podcast. That's what you've chosen to do. That's part of your personal work, whatever you've had to do that. It's part of your professional work. It's your spiritual journey. You're bringing other guests out. I mean, there's so much that's going on. So that is your world work. I mean, we just have to, it cannot be either or that much. Either you're demonstrating or you're navel gazing. There's so much more. A baker, that's their work. That's their devotion to bring bread. It's like such a basic thing. That's what they do. We need a baker as well. We can't all be healers or activists in the traditional way or just selfish in ourselves. We need a diverse world, and we just need to see that whatever you do, it is sacred and it is world work. And it's your personal work because, it takes a lot to shift yourself to become a podcaster. It might not be an issue now, but I'm sure at some point it's like, wow, that would be exciting. Me? Why me? Like, who's going to listen? I mean, we all go through that. And then you start benefiting from how amazing it is, the conversations that you have and how you're influencing others and others are influencing you, and people are listening in, and suddenly it's like you've created a new little beautiful universe, right? That is sacred. So just to show that it happens in these seemingly mundane things that you're already doing, you don't need to go on a retreat to do it. You're already doing it. You just need to do it with a different intention.
Yeah. And the intention of being that conduit, that intention of being that conduit of the frequency you want to bring, the frequency you want to emulate, your conscious choice. What do you want to bring? I want to bring peace. What do you want to bring? And then all of us are bringing what we feel in our hearts that we most want to bring. And then it is impacting the entire collective, and it's also supporting the planet because we're all connected to everything. So exactly. I love this. Powerful. And, I want to say you did such an amazing job in your book. Shift Calling, by the way, it's on Amazon. Really great book about breaking down incrementally these decisions and realizations. Like, you really step people through it in a logical way. It's like, okay, this is really clear, really great. And I really appreciated it.
Thank you. That was my aim. So if that happened, then I'm glad.
Yeah, and it's a book that I feel like I would like more time with. I was reading it in the context of preparing for this interview. And
Right.
so I was reading it kind of quickly, but I was going, ooh, that's a juicy pearl. I want to come back to that one.
Yeah.
Ooh, I want to slow down and spend more time on this one. Ooh, I want to spend a
Yeah.
week on this. So give yourself time, you guys. Like, don't rush through it the way I had to because I was preparing for the
Yeah.
interview. But like, get ready, just really give yourself space because it's got some really delicious things inside of it. Speaking of delicious food, food for thought, so
Thank you, Carrie.
I love it,
Appreciate that.
Anna. It's great. So anything you want to point people to besides the book? I know you have your
Well,
free gift, right? Mystical Moment Messages.
right. So basically, if you go to shiftcalling.com, simple to remember, shiftcalling.com, you have different ways that you can enter into a free community where there are resources, there's meditations, there's a membership inside there, but you can come in for free. There's the mystical moment messages that I send out twice a week. There are meditations. There are different things that are resources, and you can find your way there and learn more about the expansive living program and all of that. But they're free ways, and just go to shiftcalling.com and you'll find your way in. And I look forward to engaging with you if this feels right to you.
Beautiful. And I'll put the link in the show notes below, everyone. And so on the way out, I'd just like to encourage you to share this episode with anybody who you think would enjoy it, and check in with your inner guidance, make sure there's a sacred yes there, and then share it out and spread the message, spread the word, help people find this information and this lovely individual here. And so we're going to give kisses. So here come your kisses, everybody. Anna, you can join me if you want, Anna, and we're going to just give kisses, Reiki kisses. Love you guys so much. I'll see you
Blessings.
next
Thank
time
you,
on Soul
Carrie.
Nectar Show, everyone. Love you. Bye for now.
If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, awake, Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.